Not an IT guy.
Okay.
I do not have any knowledge of IT.
This week on Now That's It.
We're talking about the end of 1999. So we jumped onto the outsourcing bandwagon and have never looked back.
Tony Johnson tells Chris Massey about the important role customer intimacy, standardization, and learning to say no have had in helping build LemonTree to one of the premier MSPs in the Netherlands.
If you keep on going in the same direction, doing what you believe you're doing properly, it'll pick up speed and it'll just keep on accumulating.
Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
Tony, thank you for being here with us today. Why don't we start off a little bit? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got started in the managed service industry.
My name's Tony Johnson. I'm married, 3 kids.
Fantastic.
And I always say I have a 4th kid in Alphen aan de Rijn. That's where we work, where my company is. LemonTree. This year we're celebrating our 25th anniversary.
Wow, congrats.
We started off as a staffing company. I've always been in the staffing business. Started in a different area, moved on to IT. And from the IT staffing business, we had a customer who said, I need a crew in here to buy a new environment, design a new environment, and migrate to the new environment. And he was incredibly happy with the solution, with the guys. But after a while, he said that he was incredibly happy with what they'd done, but he didn't know how he was going to manage it.
Yep.
So we're talking about the end of 1999,
Fantastic.
2000.
Wow.
And he said, I want to outsource it to you. So I'm not an IT guy.
Okay.
I do not have any knowledge of IT, but I can do the translation between what users need and what I can speak to people who have a lot of knowledge in the industry. So I went to talk to him. Okay, what do we need to do to get that contract, to outsource it to us?
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, he gave us sort of a 10 commandments. This is what I want, but it had nothing to do with technology.
Right.
It's all service. It's all, if I call, I want to know who I get on the telephone. And more important, he needs to know who I am. And he needs to know what my needs are. And if I have a problem, I'll say it once. Then it's his, he has to take ownership, and he has to run with it. He has to communicate over that proactively. And so all these things were customer intimacy, service, nothing to do with technology.
Right.
And we just sat down and decided, how can we manage these things and make sure that we do what he wants us to do? And that was the first customer. That started our journey on outsourcing, nowadays managed services.
Okay.
And it was such a different experience sitting next to your client for 3 or 5 years. Instead of in staffing, it's sort of regular that you have a sort of a 3-month contract, and the guy, is doing his best. And if there's a budget, he'll get extended for another 3 months. So we jumped onto the outsourcing bandwagon and have never looked back.
Wow, that's fantastic. Late 90s, you're an early adopter into the managed service model.
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges being that sort of early to market in a recurring revenue model? And
Lots.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. You want to share
Yeah.
anything you guys ran into?
Well, I think the biggest challenge was the second client, because the first client, we had the freedom to design the stack that we had knowledge about.
Sure.
The second client came on board and he had all different tools, all different technologies, all different vendors, and being naive and not very accomplished at that time, we said yes. And then, shit hit the fan, as it were.
Yes.
So then after that, we decided, this doesn't seem like a scalable model
not
if you have to sort of learn every new technology every time you onboard a new client. So then we started figuring out, okay, it's necessary to standardize. It's necessary to know what you're good at and don't do anything you're not good at. And that's been a slow and very steady, not so slow, but a very steady journey in sharpening our tools, in just becoming who we are I think our biggest strength is saying no to clients who don't fit our DNA or fit our technology stack, and standardizing.
Yeah. Did you learn that early enough to where you said, "This is what our offering's gonna be, and we're gonna say no"? I mean, how long did it take for you to say no? 'Cause
I think it was a gradual but steady growth,
Mhm.
sort of looking for the answers and slowly each year getting some things right.
Yep.
After a while, we had the possibility to onboard a consultancy club who were also in the business, and they helped us sort of build a blueprint for success. And after that, s- a lot of stuff sort of clicked, as it
Yeah.
were.
That standardization exercise is a really, really hard one for MSPs. And from my past life, I remember not being able to walk away from a lot of deals that just didn't quite fit the model. But I think at that point where you realize that, not all money is good money, right? Into your business, you've got to make sure it fits your business model and that your technicians are able to provide that level of support, that expertise that LemonTree is sort of known for. I think that's a pretty monumental shift. So talk a little bit about the name of the company, LemonTree. It's a neat name. Is there a story behind
Oh,
that? Or
no, yes.
no? Yeah.
When we started off the company as a staffing company,
Mhm.
we decided to do it differently. So
Mhm.
we've always had the feeling that we have an offering that's different from the rest of the pack, as it were.
'Kay.
And that's not being cocky. It's just that we think of the things that are happening and say, is that something we can believe in, or is that something we can stand by? And the initial company name had the name Impulse in it.
'Kay.
And Impulse is a very unlucky name, as in a lot of companies are called Impulse.
Sure.
So after a couple of years, after a couple of incidents, we decided we needed a new name. This is going to impede our growth.
Mhm.
And okay, now comes the way we found Lemon Tree was just an evening on the beach
Yep.
with a couple of glasses of wine, a couple of bottles of wine,
Sure.
and it was just a thought process, which sort of was in a half an hour. We think we're different. We think we do things refreshingly,
Mm.
refreshing, lemon, lemon tree, lemontree.nl. Oh, that's available. Okay, let's do it.
Fantastic.
So
Some of the best names come up with those in those creative ways. That's great, Tony.
Hi, I'm Brian Best, Senior Product Manager in charge of Apple Roadmap at Enable. Question I get asked all the time, why use Enable for your Apple support needs? Well, first off, recognize that a Mac is just a computer. It's metal, it's plastic, and human-generated code. You already know how to do all that, so don't treat it as special. Fix it, maintain it, support it, secure it, and do all that in the same dashboard as all your other computers. That reduces complexity, right? You're already familiar with the tools, so you can leverage existing workflows for monitoring, remediation, maintenance, remote support. And okay, maybe Apple devices are a little special. And Enable can do all that special device management stuff for you too. And at Enable, we don't stop at just remote management. We do layer security like Cove data protection, works on Mac. Integrated EDR powered by SentinelOne, works great on Mac. So if you haven't looked at Enable for your Apple needs lately, why not give it a try right now?
All right, so it sounds like LemonTree has gone through a number of changes: staffing agency, consulting, full managed services. I'm sure there's a number of other things and changes that's happened over the years. But what was the moment where, you maybe realized as the owner that this is it? We're doing the right thing. We've made the right decision to take the company in that direction. Just what was that point in your career?
I don't think there's a moment.
Yeah.
I think one of the books that inspired me most is, I don't know if you know Jim Collins,
Mm-hmm.
From Good to Great.
Yep.
It's just, if you've ever seen a strongman show, you see this great big guy trying to pull a lorry
Yeah.
a trailer, and
Yeah.
it's, it's so much effort to get it moving. But if you keep on going in the same direction, doing what you believe you're doing properly,
Hmm.
it'll pick up speed and it'll just keep on accumulating. And that, I think, is our strength, my strength, keeping focus on, doing what we're doing what we can do properly,
Hmm.
not doing things we can't do properly. So we either say no, or we'll get a competitor or a specialist in that
Hmm.
area to help us,
Great.
and just keep on doing what you're good at.
Yeah, that's great, Tony. Talk a little bit about customer service. You mentioned it early on. The reason you created sort of your managed services practice was, you had a customer come to you and say, "This is what I expect. I expect to know who I'm talking to, and I want this sort of experience from a customer service perspective." So, what's LemonTree's sort of philosophy behind customer services, and how do you treat your customers?
I think everything is centered around our customer satisfaction score.
Hmm.
So we have a system, very simple. Just with every ticket we close down, we ask the customer, and that's not our. Often it's not our the person we're talking to in the company, but it's his employees, as it were, or his colleagues, and we just simply ask them, "How are we doing? Did you enjoy the service we gave you?" Is that, that's a 1 to 5.
Hmm.
And since we started doing that in 2015, we've had an average of a 9.4 score. So that's a 4.7 on the 5 stars
Yep.
scale. But in Holland, we're used to doing everything on a 10-point scale.
Sure.
So that's 9.4 average over all tickets every month. It's a revolving account, so it isn't sort of accumulating on top, because then it's very difficult. But it's a monthly score. But we've been averaging that for, since 2015, since we
Wow.
started doing it. And that was initiated, not to be able to say this. We didn't understand that when we started that, but in IT, you're always sort of, if a customer's happy, you don't hear anything.
Right.
But when things go wrong, then you hear a lot.
That's right.
So we were thinking of a way, how can we get the small nitty-gritty little challenges, or what you call it, when somebody's frustrated about
Yeah.
something, how do we get that above table? How do we get that visible? So we have our little survey has, you can rate from 1 to 5, and there's a little box. And if a customer is unsatisfied, is not satisfied, you'll always see why, because they can, get rid of it.
Yep.
That's good for most people talking about things, and that gives us a chance to sort of jump onto it and sort of plan, do, check, act. What did we do wrong? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen in the future? Communicate with the person who is unsatisfied, and make sure that they know that we are not happy about the fact that they are not satisfied.
Yep.
It's just a simple thing, but it's very powerful.
Very good.
Uh,
That's very smart, and I love to hear that that was an important thing that you added to your process early on. That's great. So let's stay on that communication piece for just a minute. Obviously, the more mature your company got, I'm sure the better you were able to address a number of customer issues proactively, right? And so maybe less phone calls, less chance to fill out a satisfaction survey. Is it safe to assume that you've come across at least once or twice a customer saying, "We don't need you anymore. We don't ever have to call you because and they don't know why, because you're fixing everything behind the scenes." How do you get in front of customers and to let them know, like, this is how we're really helping you?
yeah, I'm I'm in the lucky situation that I'm not in the driver's seat at the
Yep.
moment.
Yep.
So, but when I used to do sales, I would always, in sort of the selling period of our company, I would always say, if we do our work properly, you will have a sort of a 6 month period that you'll hate us,
Yep.
because then you have to go through a change, and going through a change is always painful. And after that, the phone will die, and we'll never hear you again.
Yep.
And then you're a good customer. And that's what we're aiming for. So communicating, letting people know what they can expect beforehand is always a good thing. But of course, we have in Holland, we call them service managers or
Mhm.
service delivery managers. So we call them service managers, and they just every 3 months they're off to our clients. They're on their side of the table, so they're responsible for keeping the customer happy, and they just give them insight in everything that's happening in the 3 months that have passed.
That's great.
And yeah, that's a healthy process, and it's also a very positive process.
Yep. That's really great to hear, Tony, and refreshing because back in the States, when we would sell, it was the same thing. We used to get to a whiteboard and we draw a curve. We say, this is what customer experience is going to feel like to you. You're going to love us because whatever was happening before, all of a sudden you've got somebody to help your problems. And then the problems are going to be so bad and so many that it's going to take us some time to sort of fix. And then things are just going to go, and you're not even going to know we're there anymore. And so that's great that you had a similar conversation with your prospects as well. So talk a little bit about the future for LemonTree. I mean, what things are you hoping to do? Is there, acquisition, M&A? Do you want to grow organically? What's the future look like?
I think our sort of long-term goal is not so much about growth or revenue or being so many headcount. It's just being, our ambition is to be sort of the go-to provider in the mid-market in Holland. We're very oriented around customers in Holland. We only do business with Dutch companies. That doesn't mean that we're not providing services to a lot of companies outside of Holland, because a lot of our customers are very ambitious. They have subsidiaries all over the world, but we like doing business with Dutch companies, and that's going to stay the focus. There's a lot of M&A going on in Holland at the moment. A lot of companies that we've grown up with are competitors that I know personally.
Sure.
I know a lot of people in the business. A lot of them are choosing to sort of hop on the bandwagon of buy and build. And I think that leaves us in a unique situation where what we see, let me put it differently, what we see is that we're onboarding new customers who've had a long-term relationship with our competitors, who have been incredibly happy with the service they had, but are not so much happy with the new situation. We're in the engineers that they've always known, that they've decided to move on because they're not into this buy and build thing.
Mhm.
The people who they're interacting with are, they're managing it differently. They're sort of more of a spreadsheet tigers than that they're into the, are you happy customer? The landscape is changing. I think for us, we've got so much work. There's so much growth to sort of, there's so much business at the moment that is available that we're not looking into mergers or acquisitions or whatever. I don't say we won't be doing that in the future,
Sure.
but there's just so much to do.
Yep. That's great.
And the focus is always on, keeping the customer happy, doing what's necessary to keep them happy. And that's just, I think the focus has to be there and stay there at the moment.
Great. Well, what a pleasure it was to talk to you today, Tony. I wish you and LemonTree all the best of luck and look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
To receive updates about future episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or your preferred podcast platform, and follow Enable on LinkedIn. We appreciate your support and encourage you to leave a rating or review, as it helps us reach more listeners who can benefit from the wealth of knowledge shared on this show. Remember, success is not a destination, it's a journey. And by immersing yourself in the stories of those who have walked the path before you, you'll gain the tools, inspiration and confidence to achieve your own triumphs. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes of Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success. This podcast provides educational information about issues that may be relevant to information technology service providers. Nothing in the podcast should be construed as any recommendation or endorsement by Enable, or as legal or any other advice. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Enable employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of Enable or its officers and directors. This podcast may also contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans, functionality, or developmental efforts that should not be interpreted as a commitment from Enable related to any deliverables or timeframe. All content is based on information available at the time of recording, and Enable has no obligation to update any forward-looking statements.